Porsche currently offers 25 variations of the iconic 911, well, 992, and essentially they break down to naturally aspirated, turbocharged, 2- and 4-wheel drive, manual and automatic. And they come in coupe, cabriolet, targa, and the race-inspired GT series. So where does the ST fit in? First few feet in the ST, you know, it's got that lightened flywheel and it's got that smaller, lighter clutch, which actually all feels very, very racy. Especially for a car that is more road focused. The shift lever is really, really short and stubby with a very short throw. I'm going to find out when we get on the road, but my first sort of opinion or impressions of, you know, to maximize performance out of this 4-liter motor, revised the gear ratios for quicker acceleration. It doesn't share the transmission from the GT3 or the GT3 Touring. The only way to find out is really see if we can get it up to 9,000 RPM. Some people will say this is the successor to the 911R. And if you go back in history, the evolution went that way. In 67 the R came out, 68 was the TR. Porsche has skipped over the TR. But what really put them on the map and led the way to the 73 RS was the ST, which came out in 69 and was in production through the Sport Purpose catalog if you knew how to ask your dealer on what boxes to check. Initially you could get a 2-liter based on the S, but STs, they were kind of like 57 varieties of how you wanted to build a sport purpose race car. Some had 2.2s, some had 2.3s, some are MFI, some were carbureted. I suppose the evolution from the R to the ST is right here. So I could see how some would say this is the evolution of the 911R. So these are the fixed back carbon bucket seats, which are actually pretty comfortable, and I love, love, love this pinstripe. The interior for me is actually perfect. I'm not a fan of, you get in some of these hypercars and they've got, you know, 18 different textures. This we've got vinyl, which is matte. We've got matte plastic. We've got some fancy carbon fiber weave. And we've got black chalk pinstripe. That's it. We've got a stretchy netting. No doubt this is lightweight, race inspired. We've got some webbing pull straps to open the door. And that's it. We got some Alcantara. And we got like 5 shades of black. That's all we need. There's nothing that distracts you. This car really is pretty pure in that sense. It's not over fussy, it's not over busy. So for the drive, we had a choice of the Heritage package, which I'm really not a fan of, GT Silver, which I am a fan of, black, but I had to go for the Pink Panther, the Rubystar. It's one of those crazy colors that you either love it or you hate it, but I just figured it would look awesome in this terrain. But yeah, Rubystar is one of those trendy colors that if you got a 964 RS in Rubystar or Ruby Stone, depending how you want to pronounce it, it's probably worth 100 grand more than a white one. It's kind of crazy how cars, you know, look better in certain colors. I got to figure out if Rubystar is a paint to sample color or if it's actually a stock color. Even for me it gets a little bit confusing at first glance to tell the difference. Is it a GT3 Touring? Is it a Sport Classic? You know, I see that the front hood or bonnet is obviously GT3. Looks like the front bumper is GT3, but we have a different fender with these actual inset air vents coming out with this super interesting cut line going down the door and a return to proper door handles. To me it looks like the roof is potentially borrowed from the Sport Classic or potentially GT3 RS. The rear quarter seems pretty similar to a GT3, as does the back end. I know we have a different wing here that raises at a higher speed of around 80 miles an hour. and this really delicate, skinny little gurney flap on the back end. Underneath we've got the diffuser, some splitter. Of course, you know, this is all carbon fiber reinforced plastic with some matte black plastic on the diffuser there. We got some fancy ST badging, and obviously we have to have the 60th anniversary of the 911 right there. In Rubystar, it actually does look pretty spectacular. This is one of those love it or hate it sort of colorways, and with the flat black wheels and black rocker trim and diffuser, it does look pretty awesome. One thing that you probably do have to be aware, starting the ST, or engaging the clutch I should say, there's not a lot of travel in the clutch. It's not like it's an on-off switch like a Carrera GT would be, but it's a short travel of engagement that might take just, you know, 1 or 2 shifts to get really comfortable. After that, it's so short along with the shift throw that shifting becomes a real pleasure. And we'll see how it is right here when we come down to first gear. We'll see if we get any clutch judder. No, it's actually really nice the way it engages. So Holger, what is your involvement in the 992 ST?
So I was responsible for all the performance, drivability, technical wise.
How does the 992 ST differ from a GT3 Touring?
We made a lot of improvement of calibration stuff, lightweight, more power on the engine.
Having driven GT3, GT3RS, GT3 Touring, I often describe those cars as too much of a track car possibly. This ST is more of a road focused car as opposed to a track focused car. Yet it seems to have a lot of race-focused racy bits, lightened flywheel, smaller diameter clutch, it's shortened gears, different ratios. Those to me seem racy bits for a car that is more street-focused.
In fact, all of us loves cars, and we tried to put all best in one car, to get the lightest car, to get the most feedback we can get in the car, as well as more comfort in the suspension. So we tried to get a car which we would drive for our own every day.
Talk me through the difference in the suspension tuning and dampening. And having driven the GT3 on the road, which often to me felt a little sort of skiddy and a lot of kickback over uneven surfaces, tell me, is there a difference between the actual components and how you tune them differently in the ST?
There are not too much difference in the components. It's more difference in the tuning and in the way to tune the car. So we focused more on comfort, engineered to the lap times. So I most of the time I was in countryside near at my home. So it was very nice to go there and tune the car and put all the best to get more comfort in the car. I think it's not softer, it's different. So I tried to get the chassis more soft, but in fact the car is not really softer.
I do find it interesting that Porsche engineers have been able to sort of dial out, tune out, adjust the dampening that makes this car less skittish over uneven surfaces. That's one of those things I always found driving a GT3. It always sort of tramlined a little bit and hopped around, and you know, was possibly too much of a race car for the road. The engineers at Porsche really seem to have dialed this back and made it more user-friendly on these back roads. You know, the GT3 is great for the, you know, the smooth Bowling Green racetrack, but sometimes I did feel it was hampered on LA roads especially. These roads are not as bad as LA roads, but this does seem to give confidence over uneven surface where the car sort of doesn't pivot too much and bounce around like a bucking Bronco or tram line. It seems more stable, seems more compliant over the bumps, seems to track really smoothly. So I wonder if they will use these settings on the next GT3 Touring. You know, the one that might not be quite as track focused. It still feels stiff, but it doesn't do this hop skip, you know, and it feels more planted and stable when you actually set a turn and sort of less kickback. Is the steering ratio, is anything different in the steering?
Yes, the steering ratio is different. And we had to change a little bit on the steering ratio because of remove the rear axle steering. We had to change a little bit. And I made a lot of calibration work in the steering.
Why remove the rear steering?
But I think the main reason was get the car lighter, got about 11 kilos out from the car just to remove the rear axle steering.
Why make it the lightest 911?
Overall, we wanted to get a very special car, make it light, make it responsiveness, and get a good feel, a good response on the car. And therefore, the weight is very important for get this goal's achievement.
Talk about the gear ratios. They feel a lot shorter. A lot of times I'd be in fourth gear, but it felt like I was in third gear. They all seem to be a step down. Talk me through why you chose a shorter gear ratio.
I think the main reason was to get more power on small roads, to get more feeling in the car, to shift more often with the car, get more. I guess the main reason was more the feeling, not the performance. But I think the second reason was, we get a much more performance, more acceleration.
The 4-litre that's in this car, the 4-litre has been around since, 2011 with the GT3 4.0? And what I've noticed over the past dozen years, this is probably making 5% more horsepower at peak and not a lot more torque in the development of the 4-litre over the past 12 years. And I'm assuming, having driven this, part of the lower gear ratio is to really maximize peak performance out of the 4-litre naturally aspirated engine. My question for you is, have we reached the max potential of the 4-litre naturally aspirated engine to meet today's emission standards?
Probably yes, because we have to achieve a lot of emission standards, and now we are more close to the maximum what we can do for legal road cars, not for race cars, but for legal road cars. I think so. Nothing
beats a naturally aspirated car that revs to 9,000 RPM with close ratio gears, where if you're not short shifting and you're shifting high up the rev band, call it 8,000 RPM. That's where the real thrill is. Yeah, granted, a turbo will be faster, max top speed, but I often say it's not about the top speed for me. It's about how you get from A to B and how it makes you feel, the emotions that the car gives back. And that's where this car, the ST, really seems to excel. Like right there, coming out of that turn in third gear up to 7,000 RPM, it does pull strong. And I like the idea that you have to work for the rewards. Turbos are easy. I often talk about my Turbo S. You get maximum speed and performance with not minimal effort, but you have to put way more effort in this type of car. And that's what makes it engaging, and that's what makes it a driver's car. You got to put the effort in to get the reward out. And ultimately, isn't that what driving's about? I personally love the way it looks. I always thought the GT3 RS wing was too big. I had issues with the GT3 Touring on the back end. I'm a big fan of the Sport Classic. I love the roof line. Is the front hood bonnet shared with the GT3? Is the front bumper shared with the GT3?
Yes, it's a GT3 bumper, it's a GT3 hood at the front. The fender is new. The roof is from the GT3 RS.
Okay.
The doors are from the GT3 RS. It's everything is lightweight. It's carbon fiber fender, carbon fiber door.
So let's talk about the door for a moment, if we can come back, because one of my favorite things is the line that's coming through here. Talk me through what is going on right here, this vent, this opening.
We had the door from the GT3 RS and we had to put a new fender in it. And the second way, the technical way, is we get more air outside from the wheelhouse and get a little bit more downforce from it.
Is this a shared bumper with the GT3 Touring?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Talk me through the deck lid. I hear this raises at a different speed, and I hear we have this very delicate gurney flap.
Yes, we put a gurney flap on it and can move the spoiler a little less than the Touring, and we move it on a higher speed.
So is it safe to say the ST really is aimed towards the driving enthusiast who likes his drives on his favorite canyon road as opposed to on the track? Obviously, I assume this is going to be great on track, but it does seem more orientated to the enthusiastic driver on his favorite road. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, I think so. If you want to get a very high emotional car, it's the perfect car for you.
So this covers all the senses. Looks good, feels good, smells good, sounds good.
Yes, I would say that.
So weirdly, the ST kind of reminds me of like a short wheelbase hot rod car where everything is really, really zingy, and then when you're cruising on the freeway, I don't know, 75, 80, you kind of feel like you just need one more gear, like, you know, maybe a tall 7th cruising gear. Because all those gears are so short. You know, when I finally got to redlining 2nd, 3rd gear, you know, obviously I was doing triple digit speed then. And then you go through the rest of the gears, and just a rambling observation of how this car does remind me of a couple of the hot rod short wheelbase R-inspired cars. You know, short wheelbase in the sense of it's super nimble in the twisters. You know, that is where it excels. I do feel you kind of got to thrash the nuts off it and keep the revs above 5,000 RPM to really, really be in the sweet spot. And you cannot short shift in it. It really seems like it's at home when the needle is over 5,000 RPM. You know, the closer you can get to that magic 9,000 mark, the better it is. But obviously, cruising on the 101, we're not getting close to that right now. I've never owned a new 911. I gotta say, I really do love the ST. But with a sticker price of $291,000, it's way, way, way out of my price league. And obviously, these are gonna be the next must-have accessory to go to your cars and coffee in. So I don't really see myself owning a 992 ST. But that's the greatest thing about OPP, I always say it. You don't have to own it to experience it. Hopefully this doesn't become one of those cars that people don't drive. You know, collectors that are afraid to devalue their ST by putting miles on it. After all, these cars are built to be driven, and this car drives exceptionally well. So to me, it's all about putting miles on it. You know, the more miles you can get on it, the more memorable moments, the better it is. Right there, 8,000 RPM up to 3rd. It just zings. That's what it's all about. Not keeping the miles low so you can brag at your cars and coffee that you don't have any miles on it. It's dropping it to 2nd, rolling around a corner, and then getting ready to plant your foot. 8,500, and then that push right there. That's why you cannot short shift. You got to shift high up. When it's shifting above 7,000 RPM, 8,000 RPM, and dare I even say, if you can grab a shift at 9,000 RPM, that's 75 right there, and we're just catching this GT3 up. He's the only thing holding us up. So obviously I'm now buzzing. This car engages the sensors. It's a buzzy, buzzy car, that's all I can say. It's a lot of fun. Let's drop it down a second and see how it is there. That sounded 8,000. That's where it's at, the whale. Let's get a 9,000 RPM shift, second to third, right there. Punchy, 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 punchy. And then anchors really just scrub speed if you need to. That's where it's at. The more miles you can put on it, the better it is. We'll grab fourth just to come off the boil a little bit. Nah, back down to third. Let's get it on song. That's where it comes alive, right there. And that's how quick it shifts. So I feel that Porsche has achieved the goal of creating the enthusiast driver's car. You know, this would be the one I would take over the GT3 Touring and of course the GT3 itself. To me it just seems to tick those boxes. I just wish they hadn't called it the ST. There's 26 letters in the alphabet. Surely they could have picked a few others, or call it the TS just for giggles, you know, create something new. I get it, the ST, you know, the ST is one of my favorite cars. I ramble on about this all the time. The R and the ST, I've replicated, built myself quite a few of those cars. It's the era that I love, the late 60s, early 70s. It, to me, is the pure perfection of Porsche motorsports. So I get what the ST is all about, and in a way I get it. This is potentially a marketing thing, harking back to that original greatest ST, and this is the lightest version of the 992. I understand it, but personally I just wish they'd called it something else other than the ST. The TS I think would have been fine, because ultimately it's a really, really great car. And I don't want to hate on it, but for some reason calling it the ST just kind of irritates me slightly. Anyway, I'm going to grab another gear and enjoy the drive back to Napa in the 992 ST. Cheers and welcome.